Hey everyone, it's Eddie Kalegi reminding you that each and every episode of Sports Speak is powered by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a one-stop shop for tickets to concerts, sporting events, and so much more. And now you can use the promo code SportsSpeak on the site to get $20 off your first purchase. So what are you waiting for? SeatGeek. Let there be live. And now on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Sports Speak Live, episode 149. I'm Eddie Kalegi, riding solo for this one. Technology would not cooperate. Last episode, Tim stepped in and did a good one with Brett Hahn, who was in the building for Aaron Rodgers' injury. But right now, the Jets are not the most dysfunctional team in New York. That goes to the New York Giants. We're going to talk about that. The Philadelphia Eagles, a team even more dysfunctional than the Giants or the Chicago Bears. A lot has gone on in the last 24 hours as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. We'll get deeper into that. I've got my first rankings of the strong six and the suffering six. I'll explain that. Also have a take on the whole Deion Sanders Colorado situation ahead of a big weekend in college football. So let's not waste any more time. Get into it again. Sports Speak Live, powered by SeatGeek. You can use the promo code SportsSpeak, all caps, one word, put it together. You'll get $20 off your first purchase at checkout. So again, Sports Speak, all caps, one word, promo code on SeatGeek, $20 off your first purchase at checkout. So let's start with fantasy football because we've got our Sports Speak Fantasy League. We are 2 weeks into it. Again, we're going to be giving you updates on what's going on. We posted it on the socials. We only got 2 unbeaten teams for the first 2 weeks. It's been a weird start. Tim Moore, Tyler Glass. Tim made the playoffs last year. T. Glass was middle of the road. They're 2-0. We knew that Tyler Glass's team, the way the gimmicks worked out, he had a really good roster. It's going well for him. As for me, I'm feeling okay right now. Got a nice win over Brett after a really disheartening loss in week 1. Honestly, should be 2-0, but got absolutely screwed in the first week. I had 2 players against 1, but one of those 2 was Aaron Rodgers. The other was Gabe Davis. So I had 2v1 against Tristan, and I had a 16-point lead. And I guess Aaron Rodgers leaving Tristan's Packers suddenly gave his team some voodoo magic, and Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Gabe Davis doesn't get targeted. I had the lead until the final drive of regulation. Stephon Diggs makes 2 catches. I lose the lead. I lose the game. So I'm 1-1. I lost my quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, but I had the same quarterback combo that Zoe had last season with Jared Goff as my backup, and I replaced Rodgers on my roster with Sam Howell. So I've got an opportunity there. One team that's in big trouble is first round exit UConn, which is run by Alec Crowdhamel. They are 1-1, but he has numerous injuries. He just lost Nick Chubb. He's been without Aaron Jones. He's been without Raheem Blackshear, and now Anthony Richardson's hurt. So his best players, his receiving core is still all standing, knock on wood for now, but big trouble for Alec. Adam Trapper, Ryan Mineker, they both won, so that's cool. And then if you are Ginger, you are not a winner because Zoe and Drew are both 0-2. I'm feeling pretty good going through this week's matchups. I take on Zoe. She's 0-2. She's got a pretty good team, but nothing great. She had Cooper Kupp, and of course, he was her first round pick, and he's been hurt. My pick was hurt too because I had Travis Kelce, but thankfully he is back. But I face Zoe. Right now, 54% chance to win. It's a 50-50 split between Tristan and Tim. Brett favored by a lot over Adam Tropper, Ethan Hoffman, who got a win last week. He's 1-1. So Hahn versus Hoffman there. It's a 55% favorite for the defending champ, Andrew Bellows, as he faces the injured Alec Crowdhamel squad. Tyler Glass looks to get to 3-0 against Ryan Mineker. And Drew Jua battles Adam Tropper. This is a big one for the bottom of the barrel. Tropper trying to get to 2-1. Drew looking for a win, but he's got a lot of injuries. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been banged up. Lamar, Breece Hall, and Jeff Wilson. So he's got 4 injured players, and his backup quarterback is Russell Wilson. So he's in some trouble. But again, we'll be giving you updates throughout the season because we did our fantasy draft, which again, so many of you tuned in for. That was so much fun. We've also been doing our weekly pick'em, Tim and I. I'm off to a good start. I'm 5-1. Tim is 3-3. Started 0-3, but bounced back with 3 wins in week 2. Again, follow us on X at SportsSpeak Live for all of that. You can also find us online, sports-speak.com. So enough of that. Let's break down, because I got some things to say that I wanted to share in week 1, and now I can expand upon them in week 2 now that I'm here and my connection is all good. The Philadelphia Eagles have not looked great for the first 2 weeks. They've escaped by the skin of their teeth with 2 wins, but guess what? 2 wins are 2 wins. And I like seeing Jalen Hurts get battle tested early in the season. He's turned the ball over a couple of times. The running game is what's really concerning me, because DeAndre Swift has done nothing. For some reason, Rashad Penny is not even getting used, even though I thought he was going to be the number 2, possibly the number 1. Somehow Boston Scott's ahead of him on the depth chart. And you know me, I love Boston Scott, but Boston Scott is not going to be a major useful contributor until week 16 when they play the Giants. Till then, Rashad Penny should be getting most of the action. So he should be in there. I don't know why he's not getting used. DeAndre Swift has really struggled to start the season. So that's a cause for concern. Injuries are also a concern. The Birds have been banged up, specifically in the secondary. They were without Reed Blankenship. James Bradbury's been hurt. Now Avonte Maddox was just placed on injured reserve. Fletcher Cox was banged up in the opening game. So defensively, the Eagles are not healthy. So I'm hoping that can kind of iron itself out. But for now, the Birds are shorthanded on the defensive side, especially in the secondary. But what really works out for Philadelphia, again, as I talked about when we projected their season, was that the schedule works where they can kind of get into a groove early in the year against manageable opponents. Their next 3 games are against the Bucs on the road, and I know Tampa's 2-0, but they also have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. Then home against Washington. Despite the Commanders being 2-0, I'm still not fully bought into everything that's going on there. And then they face off with the Rams, who have some good rookie receivers. Cooper Kupp would be eligible to return from IR for that game. And it's in Los Angeles, but I still think the Eagles are the stronger roster. So it really kicks in after the Jet game, because the Jets with no Aaron Rodgers, really frustrating. I mean, the Jets are just cursed at this point. But you got Miami, who's looking good. Washington, no. But then you got 4 straight weeks, really 5 straight weeks that are going to be brutal. You have 2 Dallas games, at home on November 5th, on the road December 10th. And sandwiched in between are 3 games against Kansas City, Buffalo, and San Francisco. It is very realistic that the Eagles are really good this year, and they walk out of that stretch losing 4 of 5. Besides that, there's really besides those 5 games, you could very easily see them going 11-1 with the rest of the schedule. But it's those 5 games that are going to be tough. But you know what? Deal with the injuries now. Deal with the adversity now. Deal with the struggles now. Let Jalen Hurts get into a groove now. Let this running game get into sync now, so they're ready to go when the middle of the season comes. But then, thankfully, after those 5 weeks, which are going to be rough, you've got some easier games. You play the Giants twice. You have the Arizona Cardinals on the schedule. Those are games that you can win, and you can get some confidence. So after kind of getting the life sucked out of you for a month, you can calm down. Also, once you clinch the division, hopefully, or at least clinch a playoff spot, you can rest up your players and get ready to go for the postseason. So, you get sort of humbled for a few weeks, but then you can get that confidence back with a few good games to end the season, including 2 against the Giants, who the Eagles handled easily all 3 times they faced off last year. So if I'm Philadelphia, no cause for concern for me. They are 2-0. There are a lot of other teams who are really good who are not 2-0 and have lost to teams that are worse than the teams that the Eagles have struggled against. New England, while Mac Jones is a middle-of-the-road quarterback and they have a middle-to-bottom defense, they found a way to play well against Philly. They found a way to play well against Miami. They're not a bad team. Minnesota, Eagles kind of let them creep back into the game, but walked away with the victory. Vikings won 13 games in the regular season last year. So despite the fact that they're 0-2, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, with how weak the NFC is, that's a top 5 team in the NFC. That still is. So Eagles played against a fringe playoff team and a top 5 team in the NFC and walked away with 2 wins. I mean, I'm chalking that up as successful. A team that's not successful at all are the New York Giants. And I do not care that they walked away with a win in Arizona. They were down 20 against Josh Dobbs, against a Cardinals team that is actively tanking and is a complete mess. And the Giants are, again, very, very lucky that they have Brian Daboll as their head coach. They are very lucky that he's the head man. Daboll took control of a game that had kind of gotten out of hand and was calling plays. And that's what helped the Giants get back into this. But their defense has just been getting torn to shreds. Remember the whole thing last year? Doesn't matter how good Daniel Jones is. Oh, this Giants defense. Well, this Giants defense has been bad. Kayvon Thibodeau has not been great. The secondary has been pitiful. And against Dak and against the Cowboys, that's one thing. Against the Arizona Cardinals, that's not good. And they are, again, incredibly lucky that they have one of the best head coaches in the league. And that's what helped them dig themselves out of a hole. Daniel Jones also, credit where credit is due, played really well in the second half. And the Giants have more weapons for him to work with. But guess what happened? As I predicted going into the season, Saquon Barkley was so good last year, but it is an anomaly when he stays healthy. Week 2, he's already hurt. Ankle sprain, gonna miss multiple weeks. So the Giants already lose Saquon, which they have done now 4 of his 6 NFL seasons where he gets hurt and he's going to miss multiple weeks. So Saquon is out and you lose a dynamic piece of the offense. And now Daniel Jones is going to have to rely on his receiving core, which is better, but it's still not great. So you lose Saquon. Now you got to play in a short week. They're without Andrew Thomas as well, who's been their best offensive lineman because Evan Neal, I'm sorry, is a bust. And now you got to play in a short week against a San Francisco team that has as many weapons. They have like an entire division's worth of weapons on that team, plus a top 3 defense in the NFL, plus a quarterback who I think is a future budding star. So between all of that and arguably the best coach in the NFL right now, not named Andy Reid, San Francisco, I think, is going to have a cakewalk against the Giants. And New York could be in some real trouble. So while they escaped with a win against the Cardinals, yeah, they had their biggest comeback or whatnot in team history, coming back from down 20. Doesn't matter. They are in big, big trouble. But they still pale in comparison to the team that's in the worst trouble right now. And that's the Chicago Bears. And I know one of sort of the bits with Tim, I'd say, is his disgust for Justin Fields as a quarterback and how he thinks Justin Fields is awful. Justin Fields is not a good quarterback, but he's also being failed by the system. So the Bears played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who left the door open and gave Chicago a prime chance to win this past Sunday. And then it became very apparent that the Bears offense was calling plays multiple times in a row. There was a viral clip all over social media of that final offensive drive, which ultimately resulted in the Shaq Barrett pick 6, where the Bears ran the same inside screen action 3 plays in a row. One was a penalty, second one was successful and got them a few yards, and then the third one was an interception because the defense read it. Shaq Barrett knew exactly what was happening. And not only was it the same pattern, it was the same look, the same setup going to the play. You had the same amount of receivers on both sides. You had the running back to the same side of Justin Fields, and he ran the same thing. He didn't go outside. He went inside all 3 times between the center and the right guard. He went right in all 3 times, was right there, turned around for the catch. Made the play, and then they do the exact same thing again. I mean, seriously, that's like me trying to play Madden, and I'm just using like 3 plays because I can't trust myself to throw the ball down the field because I think I'm going to have an interception. That's the strategy that the Bears are playing with right now. Not to mention the defense, which is always hyped up, similar to the Giants, is not what it's chalked up to be. And the coaching situation is bad. Matt Eberflus is in over his head as coach, very similar to his predecessor in Matt Nagy. And the Bears have had all kinds of issues over the last 24 hours. Justin Fields spoke to the media about his struggles and hinted at coaching being the problem. The defensive coordinator is not even around. Now there's been homes rated of the staff, and I don't know what's going on right now. It's a complete dumpster fire for the Chicago Bears. And I've said this in our group chat, and I'll say it again. If the Cleveland Browns did not exist, the Chicago Bears would be the most dysfunctional organization right now in the NFL when you look at it historically. Now, the Cardinals have had their problems recently, but they've also had lots of success. They almost made the Super Bowl in 2015. They did make the Super Bowl in 2008. They've had good years. The New York Jets are cursed, but I don't think it's all on ownership and management. They've brought in pieces that should be good, and it just hasn't worked out. The Chicago Bears have had a Rex Grossman run to the Super Bowl back in 2006 be their shining moment over the last 2.5 decades. The 1980s with Mike Ditka and that defense and the refrigerator, that is a long, long time ago. We have now traveled 30, 40 years, and I know the Packers were in your division, and you had to deal with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks over 30 years. And that's a tall task to deal with. But the fact that you can't sneak into wild cards consistently, or at least contend, the Lions are a mess. The Vikings are usually pretty beatable, but you still find yourself consistently in the bottom of the pack, not just in your division, but in the entire conference. And I mean, just look at the last 10 years. Jay Cutler is the quarterback. Then you go to Mitch Trubisky, which was a risk when you took him, and it didn't pay off. Biggest thing you accomplished there is making the playoffs once in a season, by the way, where you kind of fell apart at the end and barely made it into the postseason, and then got embarrassed by the Saints on Nickelodeon. And then you replace him with another guy who's in over his head, and again was a questionable draft pick because of the history of Ohio State quarterbacks not translating into the NFL, and mobile quarterbacks not translating well into the NFL, and shorter guys not translating into the NFL under center. And guess what? Justin Fields was the holy trinity. He's undersized, he's overly mobile, and he's from Ohio State. That's 3 for 3. So you got all 3 of those problems, and what's happened? It's backfired. And you've had some poor coaching decisions. You had Matt Nagy, who was not the best coach. You can't blame him for what happened with Cody Parkey with the double doink, but still, the Bears have been a mess. The Bears, I don't think people talk about enough as being a dysfunctional franchise right now, and they need leadership change. I know they've had leadership change within the last couple of years, but there needs to be some systematic change with how the Chicago Bears are run, because a team that's in that big of a media market is one of the oldest franchises, one of the more storied franchises in the league. You expect much more success, and you're not getting any of that. And now's your chance to strike, because Jordan Love, while he's looked good through the first couple of weeks, I highly doubt he's going to be Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. The Packers are finally without that star quarterback, which carried them for 3 decades. The Vikings right now are probably on the backside of this current run because Kirk Cousins is getting older, and while Justin Jefferson is young and strong, there's not too much there, and the defense is aging. The Detroit Lions are a nice story. I still have questions about Dan Campbell's coaching in the long run and how far they can go. So the Bears have the chance. And I know Justin Fields had no weapons. Now he's getting more weapons, but there's more problems there. And whether or not you think that Justin Fields is a bad quarterback, the team is certainly poorly run. So the Chicago Bears, to me, people aren't talking about it enough. They are as dysfunctional as they come. And that takes me to my new thing I'm going to be doing every week, at least when I'm on. The strong 6 and the suffering 6. So we're going to ignore 20 teams in the league that are the middle of the pack. I'm going to take who I think are the 6 strongest teams at the moment, who could really contend for a championship, and then the suffering 6, who are the 6 at the bottom of the barrel, and we'll see how much it changes. I'm not going to rank them. I'm just going to put them in these 2 tiers. So with 2 weeks complete, my strong 6, the Dallas Cowboys have to be there. Wins over the Giants and Jets, both in convincing fashion, both over teams that supposedly had good defenses. The Jets defense has, proven it a little more in their other game against Buffalo. Cowboys, though, it's been a walk in the park. Dak Prescott hasn't had to do that much. And I know people are concerned, oh, Dak, Dak, Dak. Well, guess what? A team with a 7th-round pick, third-string quarterback, made it to the conference championship last year and maybe had a shot to make the Super Bowl if he stayed healthy. So it's not all on Dak. If you've got a really good team, you got the best defense in the NFL potentially, and top 5 weapons in the NFL, and Mike McCarthy not making too many blunders at head coach, then as long as you have a serviceable quarterback, that's about all you need, especially when you're in a weak conference. So they're number 1. The San Francisco 49ers, another juggernaut from the NFC, 2 wins. We're challenged by the Rams, but we know the Rams and Niners is always an intriguing rivalry, and the Rams have been pretty impressive through the first 2 weeks. San Francisco's in that list. And I'm still putting Philadelphia because they're 2-0 and because they've beaten 2 good teams right now in my strong 6, because I still think they're the Super Bowl favorite out of the NFC. AFC side, I've been shocked by how much the Bengals have struggled because I thought they were going to the Super Bowl. They are 0-2. Joe Burrow has been a miss. I don't know if it's because of the calf. I don't know if it's just the way the Bengals are, because every season they struggle out of the gates under Zach Taylor, but they're 0-2. So they're off this. The Chiefs are one of the teams from the AFC who have made it, even though they lost to Detroit. Again, that's because of Kadarius Toney. If Kadarius Toney had made one more catch, he had 3 drops. If he had made 1 catch on one of those instead of dropping it, they probably would have won the game. So Kansas City almost beat Detroit, and then they get a big win over Jacksonville, who's a good team. And to knock them off, that's really, really good. So if I'm Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, Mahomes got his contract restructured, they're fine. And then I got 2 teams from the AFC East in the strong 6 to wrap it up. One is the Buffalo Bills, who lost a heartbreaker to the Jets, but the Jets were going for that moral victory after the debilitating loss of Aaron Rodgers. So I don't chalk that up too badly for Buffalo. It was also on the road. They come back in convincing fashion and just absolutely slaughter the Raiders in week 2. And this is with the Raiders still pretty healthy. So the Bills I have in my strong 6 because I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to win double-digit games easily. And the Miami Dolphins, I had my doubts going into the year if they could even be a wild card team, but they're doing the same thing that they did last year, starting the year really strong. The Dolphins have won their first 2 games of the season. Tua Tagovailoa has been the best quarterback in the league over the first 2 weeks. Tyreek Hill has been arguably the best receiver in the league. The defense has been making stops when necessary, even though there's still major gaps on the defensive side of the football. The run game has been serviceable, but the Dolphins, for me right now, I don't think they're going to stick, but I've got them in my strong 6. Then I've got the suffering 6. Now, the NFC is the worst conference, so they're going to have more teams in the suffering 6. I gave them 4 to start, which I think I'm almost being a little generous because I think there are more that could be down there. The Giants, as I said, really concerned about them. Don't need to elaborate more. I've already talked about them. The Arizona Cardinals are tanking actively. I don't expect them to move out of this suffering 6 group the entire season. The Chicago Bears, again, just talked about them. I think they'll be a mainstay down here. Right now, the Carolina Panthers are also down here. Bryce Young has struggled through his first 2 games. He's also a little banged up because he's an undersized quarterback. Panthers don't have much on that roster. I think they're the weakest link of what is a pretty weak NFC South. So they're the 4th from the NFC. The 2 AFC teams I've put, because it's difficult, right? The AFC is so stacked. I mean, you look at the East, the worst team is what? The Patriots? They're not terrible. The West, which we'll get to, I put one of those teams there. The South, I can't commit to any of these teams as being bad yet because Anthony Richardson has looked good through the first 2 games. Now he's hurt, but the Colts offense looks rejuvenated. The Texans have, I think they've been better than some people have expected through the first couple of games. They've at least been competitive. So the 2 I'm putting down here, the Browns, if Nick Chubb was not injured, I would have put the Texans in instead of the Cleveland Browns. But the Browns, yeah, they signed Kareem Hunt back, but you lose your best player. And Deshaun Watson at quarterback is just not the same since he missed 2 years. He's not the same quarterback. He's very inaccurate. And Chubb is the mainstay of this team. Great kid, great running back, gone for the year. Terrible news, but the Browns lose him. Got to put them down here for now, especially with the way they lost that game to Pittsburgh. And I mean, Broncos country, let's ride to 0-2. same year, New Year's, new coach, same deal. Sean Payton back at the helm now with the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, they fail to score more than 16 points and lose the opener to Vegas. Then the way you lose to the Commanders, I mean, seriously, you throw a Hail Mary and then you can't convert the 2-point conversion. I mean, I know that was a missed DPI against Washington, but even still, that was a bad ball from Russell Wilson to begin with. That was a bad scheme on a 2-point conversion. You had 3 receivers going one direction. It was going to be a crowd. You're playing from the 3-yard line. You're thrown to the end zone. That's going to be so crowded. It's going to be hard to get the ball to a single player when you have 6 bodies right there, 3 offensive players, 3 defensive players running about the same route. So if I'm Denver, I'm concerned, but it's not shocking. It's just following the course of last year. So again, my strong 6 after week 2, Dallas, Philly, San Francisco, Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo. On the other end, the suffering 6, Giants, Cards, Bears, Panthers, Broncos, and Browns. Finally, college football. Huge weekend coming up. I believe it's 6 ranked matchups plus FSU and Clemson. You've got multiple top 15 games. Ohio State, Notre Dame, a really important game for Ryan Day, who's been good against bad teams, but can't win the big game. This one could be really legacy defining for him here in his career after losing multiple times to Michigan and being an easy out in the college football playoff 2 years ago, last year, losing to Georgia. This is really going to matter for him, what he can do against Notre Dame this coming week. You've got a lot of big games in the Pac-12. SEC's got some good matchups. Big Ten's got Penn State, Iowa. Iowa's much improved. I'm going to Michigan this week. I'm really excited for that, for Rutgers, Michigan football. Rutgers has actually played them pretty tough the last couple of years. I expect the Wolverines to win, but hey, the Scarlet Knights are 3-0. Got to just keep chopping. And, you know, they went to Michigan 2 years ago. Michigan was just as good as they are right now, and Rutgers only lost by 3. So we'll see. But the storyline in all of college football right now is Deion Sanders. And I'll preface this as for good reason. I mean, he's taken a team that had 1 win and gotten them to 3-0. But it's too much. It is really too much. It's all that's talked about in the media. I mean, both College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff are both there for Colorado State when there's a bunch of games going on. There's 6 ranked games this weekend. I guarantee you Colorado's game is going to be the one that's talked about the most. Colorado-Oregon is going to be talked about way more than any of the other ranked games when there's better ones on the schedule. And Deion Sanders is a great story. He's an unconventional coach. He's brought in a lot of kids who wouldn't have had opportunities probably D1 otherwise. He's gotten guys like Travis Hunter, who initially committed to Jackson State with him when he had offers from Power 5 schools, and now went with Deion to a Power 5 school. And that's cool and all. But the coach prime and all of that, it's getting a little much to me for a team that hasn't really proven it yet. If they can beat Oregon and they can beat USC, and we're sitting here in Colorado still undefeated 5-0 to start October, then my feelings will change a bit. If they can win the next 2, I'll be like, okay, this team is legit. But you almost lost at home to rival Colorado State, who's not a very good football program. And I know Henry Blackburn had the dirty hit on Travis Hunter and took him out of the game and all that. But you allowed Colorado State to put 35 up on your defense. You barely got away from Nebraska. You barely beat TCU. You've had some nice wins to start the season. That win in TCU on the road was really cool. And again, Deion Sanders, I think, is a breath of fresh air in college football. And again, unconventional. And it's a great story what he's done with this Buffaloes program that's been downtrodden and has had multiple conference moves over the last 10, 15 years. But there's other stories in college football right now. I mean, Clemson's not good. Alabama's not good. Ohio State may not be very good. This is one of those years where it could be a very topsy-turvy season. And there are other teams besides the Colorado Buffaloes who could be in serious contention to make a run to the college football playoff, something they've never done before. Florida State is back on the up. Texas is back on the up. Those teams are much better than Colorado, and I think should be getting talked about in that way. But Colorado is the only team that's being covered by the media right now. And I think it's a little too much. And again, Colorado has Deion Sanders for now. They have Shedeur Sanders for now. I would not be surprised if the following happens. The Dallas Cowboys have 2 more years of relevant, good, but still can't make it to the promised land. And what happens? They fire Mike McCarthy and they bring in Deion Sanders as their head coach, and Deion Sanders abandons Colorado just as he did with Jackson State. I think this is what it's all trending towards. I really think it does. I really think Deion Sanders is going to be an NFL coach within 2 years. Am I saying that's a bad thing? No. I'm just saying there are so many other stories in college football that are getting neglected and just aren't getting covered because everything is about Colorado Buffaloes football. And that's cool for that team. That's cool for that school. That's great for Deion Sanders and his family and for Travis Hunter being a two-way guy playing 150 snaps a game and all of that. But there's more to college football right now than just Coach Prime. And I really hope that with this big weekend coming up with 6 ranked matchups, that they're all covered. And it's not just all about Colorado. And again, they're 3-0. They've barely won multiple times. Let's just see where we're sitting 2 weeks from now after they play Oregon and USC. But that's going to do it here for Sports Speak Live, episode 149. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Sports Speak Live. We're powered by SeatGeek. Promo code Sports Speak, all caps, one word, for $20 off your first purchase. We'll have Tim Moore back on the program next week. We're going to be previewing the baseball postseason, final week of Major League Baseball. Still some wild card spots and the American League West to be settled. We'll talk about it next week heading into the final weekend. We'll recap NFL Week 3, any big stories from college football this weekend as well. And the NBA is right around the corner. Preseason basketball starts 2 weeks from this Friday. That'll do it here on Sports Speak. Until next time, I'm Eddie Kalegi, signing off.